Being a governor in the United States is by no means an easy job. It requires a ton of responsibilities. And sometimes the people will love you, and other times they will hate you. That governor who was getting booed viciously was former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder. Rick Snyder's handling of the Flint water crisis was viewed as very poor by media observers as well as by citizens of Michigan and particularly Flint, Michigan. When Snyder left office, he had an approval rating of roughly 33%, and many Michiganders considered Snyder to be one of their worst governors in their state's history. So that brings a question. Who are actually the 5 worst governors in American history? Well, that's what I'll be trying to figure out today, and I'm going to be ranking the 5 worst governors in American history. In 5th place, we have Cole Blease. Cole Blease was known for being very anti-reform in the state of South Carolina. He was a governor there during the Progressive Era. However, he stopped notable reforms from occurring in the textile industry as well as in the medical industry, and prevented labor laws that would protect workers as well as even child laborers in the state. Blease also granted a ton of pardons during his term as governor. And while granting pardons can sometimes be a good thing, it was not a good thing the way that Blease handed out pardons. Blease was accused by some to have given out pardons to people who had paid him money and reportedly took bribes to grant pardons to people. He also broke the law numerous times by speeding and granted pardons to himself. Blease also had a very bad record with racial issues, and during his tenure as governor of South Carolina, the number of lynchings noticeably rose rapidly during his tenure, and Blease not only ignored lynchings, but he actually encouraged residents of South Carolina to lynch African Americans and encouraged the practice, which is something that many other Southern governors didn't even go as far as to do. In 4th place, we have Lilburn Boggs. Lilburn Boggs was the governor of Missouri during the Mormon War and basically ordered the extermination of all Mormons living in Missouri. While Boggs later claimed that his goal wasn't to kill all the remaining Mormons in Missouri, it is true that violence did erupt as a result of Boggs' order, and many Mormons in Missouri were killed as a result. It is estimated that roughly about 15,000 Mormons had to leave Missouri, and many of them were actually killed as a result of Boggs' direct actions. So, yes, a governor of a state literally ordered residents to kill a population of people living in his state, and Boggs certainly had a ton of blood on his hand. In 3rd place, we have Wilson Lumpkin, who was the governor of Georgia during the Indian Removal Act. While many people blame Andrew Jackson solely for the movement of Native Americans in the South all the way to Oklahoma and the Trail of Tears, it was actually Lumpkin who started out this whole process. Even though John Marshall basically ordered sovereignty for the Cherokee tribe, Lumpkin ignored this and basically had Georgia troops relocate the Cherokee in what was eventually known as the Trail of Tears, and many Cherokee ended up dying in the process because of Lumpkin's order. And Lumpkin stated that the Indian Removal Act and the Trail of Tears was his greatest accomplishment, and his actions are what led to ultimately Andrew Jackson's worst action as President of the United States. In 2nd place, we have Peter Burnett. He was the first governor of California and was also the worst governor of the state. Burnett basically banned African Americans from living in California and ordered the expulsion of all black people from the state. Burnett was also an early proponent of Chinese exclusion and played a role in the eventual Chinese Exclusion Act getting widespread support in California and the rest of the West. Burnett's worst action, though, was with regards to Native Americans, and he actually took it a step further than Wilson Lumpkin because Lumpkin ordered the relocation of the Cherokee, but Burnett ordered the extermination of Native Americans living in California, and this led to the deaths of tens of thousands of Native Americans in the state in the because of Peter Burnett's actions. Now, in first place, the worst governor in American history, that title belonged to William Henry Gist. Gist was the governor of South Carolina during the secession crisis, and after the election of Abraham Lincoln to the presidency, William Henry Gist had discussed with the other governors of southern states, such as Mississippi and Florida, the idea of seceding from the Union. And after getting reassured by Mississippi and Florida's residents that they would, or governors, that they would also join South Carolina in leaving the Union, Gist called for the secession conference and effectively asked and requested the assembly that South Carolina secede from the Union. After South Carolina's secession, Mississippi and Florida joined, and eventually 11 states formed the Confederate States of America, thus leading to the American Civil War. And this all began with South Carolina and William Henry Gist's request for the Assembly of South Carolina to secede from the Union, and also organizing secession with the other governors of southern states. Gist was also the signer of the Ordinance of Secession of South Carolina, and then later states such as Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, as well as Florida would also leave the Union. Gist's actions in organizing the secession conference, reassuring other Southern governors, and ultimately convincing the Assembly that it was time for South Carolina to leave the Union following the election of Abraham Lincoln, ultimately give him the title of the worst governor in American history because his actions played a role in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans in order to preserve the institution of slavery. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like this video down below. Subscribe to the channel. Mr. US History, out.